On this edition of Penn's Pulse, presented by S&T Bank, we are diving into the Penguins ownership groups throughout the team's history. We look into the team's struggling start and their path towards their first Stanley Cup.
He says, I'm from the IRS. I said, wait a minute, we've been negotiating with you guys. Not anymore. That's what he said. Please leave.
Paul Steigerwald examines how the tumultuous 90s ended with Mario Lemieux becoming the owner of the Penguins.
He said, what if I were to put equity into the team? And we bought it. And that's where I think the idea of this first came up in early 1999.
And Josh Getzoff explores how nearly 20 years of the Lemieux-Burkle ownership has been the most prosperous period of time in Penguins history.
I'm proud to announce that your Pittsburgh Penguins will remain right here in Pittsburgh where they belong. Thank you, Pittsburgh.
From PPG Paints Arena, this is Penn's Pulse. This portion of Penn's Pulse is brought to you by your Western PA Honda dealers.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Penn's Pulse presented by S&T Bank. I'm Selena Pompiani. In 1967, with a $2 million check and a dream, former Pennsylvania State Senator Jack McGregor led a team of investors as the first ownership group of an NHL team in Pittsburgh. To say it was smooth sailing from the drop of the puck couldn't be further from the truth. Paul Steigerwald has more.
Despite a near sellout crowd on October 11, 1967, Penguins owner Jack McGregor found out early on in the Penguins' inaugural season how hard it was to run a hockey club.
The Penguins had a rough first few years at the gate. Took many a trip to the bank to meet payroll, many years before the Penguins finally caught hold.
It wasn't long before owning the Pittsburgh Penguins became a somewhat dubious distinction. In an 8-year span, the Penguins went through 4 ownership groups.
What advantages do these fellows have now that they did not have when they originally bought the club and things did not go too well for them?
One of the big edges would be that they were from Pittsburgh and a local ownership would go over very big, and I think that they were probably had the best deal.
One of those local investors was Tad Potter, who came on as a general partner in 1971.
The only reason I got involved in the first place was to be a local owner and keep that team here. Because Pittsburgh had always been a good hockey town. I guess I'm a hockey fan, and that's probably one of my major faults as an owner. Too much fan and not enough owner.
Within 4 years, the Penguins owed thousands of dollars in back taxes. And in the summer of 1975, the tax man cometh.
Mr. Potter, I'd like to ask you to get up off your desk and please leave the premises. I said, what the hell for? Who are you? He says, I'm from the IRS. I said, wait a minute, we've been negotiating with you guys. Not anymore. That's what he said. Please leave. When the partnership declared bankruptcy, I'm the only general partner. I got to declare bankruptcy too. And it wiped out everything I had. I lost everything I had.
The team doesn't start from the team up, it starts from the top down. The fact that we were unstable, they just didn't have the money. It affected the whole franchise.
Not only did the IRS arrive on the scene, but so did an officer from Equibank named Tony Liberati.
I got involved in 1975 when the Internal Revenue Department padlocked the Civic Arena. Each of the groups for the first several ownerships just lost a ton of money with it. They just could not bring fans to the game.
The league took ownership of the team for a couple of months before selling the Penguins to a group led by Ohio businessman Al Saville that also included Ren Blair, who served as the team's general manager for one season. In February of 1977, Saville turned to shopping mall magnate Edward J. DeBartolo of Youngstown, Ohio. DeBartolo took ownership of the Penguins, and Tony Liberati joined him.
Strangely enough, I made a promise to him if he bought the team that I would go to work for him. And I kept my promise 2 years later, and spent 16 years as his chief financial officer. He had never seen a hockey game when he bought the team, not one. But when we were considering drafting Mario, I took him up to Laval, and he watched his first hockey game. And he was his first comment to me was, "That's the best. That kid right there is the best player on the ice." And I mentioned to him, I said, "We've been trying to tell you that, and that's why we want to draft him."
Mr. DeBartolo was incredible, special guy, to play with as an owner. He was very special. One thing that happened with me in '89, I think I had 199 points, didn't get the MVP. And after that, I got a call from Mr. DeBartolo to go up to Youngstown and sit in his office. And at that time, I had a bonus for winning the MVP, but he slid an envelope across his desk and gave me the bonus anyway, saying that I was his MVP and wanted me to get the bonus. So it was a very special man.
DeBartolo lost millions of dollars on hockey in the 80s, while his family's NFL San Francisco 49ers were winning Super Bowls. In effect, Mr. DeBartolo was the Penguins' #1 season ticket holder for 14 years.
Those were certainly tough days, back in the early 80s. He had lost tons of money before I got here, and then as the team got better, he started to make a little bit of money. But yeah, those were tough days, and I appreciate that he hung in there until he won the Stanley Cup, which I knew he wanted to do one day.
With 5, 4, 3, time runs out. The Stanley Cup has come to the city of Pittsburgh. The 1991 Stanley Cup champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins.
It's all worth it now, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Where's Mr. DeBartolo? Is he around? He's here. He was here. I saw him when we walked in. Yeah. He's in the room somewhere. You can ask him. He's the guy that paid all the bills for all the years and helped keep it afloat. He congratulated me when I walked in. I thanked him for all the hockey that we've had in Pittsburgh.
To win a Stanley Cup, it takes a lot of hard work, and to beat the New Jersey Devils, Washington, Boston Bruins, and then beat the North Stars, that's hard to do. And I think it's tougher to win a Stanley Cup than to win a Super Bowl or the World Series.
Coming up next on Pens Pulse.
People come in and they tell me the world will come to an end unless you do something right now. When the Penguins came in, they said the same thing, but it was true.
This portion of Pens Pulse is brought to you by Kent State University.
Welcome back to Pens Pulse, presented by S&T Bank. I'm Paul Steigerwald. Just as the Penguins reached the proverbial top of the mountain, winning the Stanley Cup in 1991, Mr. D, as he was affectionately called, addressed the team with mixed emotions at the Stanley Cup ring ceremony, which was televised live via satellite back to a dying Badger Bob Johnson in Colorado in the fall of 1991.
It's a sad occasion for me today, and it's a happy occasion. Sad because we decided to not become involved with hockey, but very happy for you people, you young people, for what you've done for our organization, our family, and for myself. For the effort you made this past season in producing a winner during a season that looked bad, and then the comeback that you made in the playoff games was unbelievable, and I want to congratulate all of you for your great efforts.
Just like with all the owners before him, money became an issue, and Mr. DeBartolo sold the Penguins to a group led by former Hartford Whalers owner Howard Baldwin. And while DeBartolo's ownership ended on a high note, Baldwin's began on the same note, with the second of back-to-back cups in 1992.
Stelio shoots it blocked. The Penguins have won the Stanley Cup. Oh, Lord Stanley, get me the brandy.
You made yourself a pretty good deal. I don't know if there anybody in the last few months that made a better buy than you did.
Well, I don't think anybody has, and I got to tell you something. This is the greatest thrill that we've ever had, and I'm absolutely thrilled for the players, for the city, for everybody. This is just a great, great moment.
Despite the initial success under Baldwin's ownership, trouble was on the horizon.
Obviously, the Penguins won their second straight Stanley Cup, but there were growing financial problems behind the scenes that no one outside really knew about. He had to sell off a number of assets to finance the team, so that really the Penguins' only revenue source was tickets. There were also a lot of deferred salaries. Eventually, another investor, a co-owner, Roger Marino, was brought in the 1990s, but even that couldn't stem the tide. And I think people inside realized that to survive, the Penguins were going to have to declare bankruptcy.
One of those deferred salaries was owed to Mario Lemieux, who was owed millions on a contract he had signed in 1992. Roger Marino could not meet the obligation, so Mario gathered a group of his closest friends to seek ownership of the team out of bankruptcy.
There were a few people that had dinner down at Morton's. He said, what if I were to put equity into the team? And we bought it. And that's where I think the idea of this first came up in early 1999. And then he had told me about it. I thought it was interesting, but really didn't think much about it. I had my own life and my own business going. And I said, look, if you need any help, let me know. And each time we went out to dinner, this thing was taking on a life of its own until that March or April when Tony Liberati had arranged for him to have a meeting down in Palm Beach at the airport.
Only been to Palm Beach once in my life, and that was it. So we met at the airport, and we quickly talked about what the situation was and what had happened. I said 30 minutes, that might be a stretch. We came to a napkin agreement and a handshake very quickly, and it's held up all this time.
It was up to the Lemieux-Burkle partnership and their attorneys to convince bankruptcy court judge Bernie Markovitz to award the team to them instead of to a group led by SMG Corporation, the organization that was running the Civic Arena.
On most all of my cases, my Chapter 11s, people come in and they tell me the world will come to an end unless you do something right now. When the Penguins came in, they said the same thing, but it was true. They needed to know whether the Penguins would exist the following year. Most of them, I just act as a mediator and decide what the law is. In that one, I think I helped these debtors get together and reorganize.
Fortunately, the judge saw the value in Mario's plan and the fact that all creditors would be repaid in full.
As long as we reorganized, save the job, save the tax base, keep the lights on in the arena, I would have been happy with any of that.
Originally, he was going to get part of his deferred compensation. And then, who are we going to get to invest? And he said, what if I just rolled it all? He goes, I'll take a discount and I'll roll it all. And I said, you don't need to take a discount. And he said, well, it'll make more people know I'm more serious about running this franchise for the long term. But he said, but everybody else gets paid. 100 cents on the dollar. So we had printing companies that were owed $400 and $500 and $600 at the time. And eventually every one of them got 100 cents on the dollar. And that was right from the top.
The Pittsburgh Penguins ask you to join us in welcoming our new owner, Mario Lemieux!
I only have two things that I want to accomplish as I go forward as the ownership of the Pittsburgh Penguins. One is to assure that this franchise remains here in Pittsburgh forever. And number two is to hopefully one day have the opportunity to bring back the Stanley Cup to the city of Pittsburgh.
After the break.
They don't interfere with the team. They're always there if I need advice or need help with something. We have the same goals. We're in to win the Stanley Cup.
Welcome back into Penn's Pulse presented by S&T Bank. I am Josh Getzoff. Gaining ownership of the Pittsburgh Penguins was just the beginning for Mario Lemieux. At the turn of a new millennium, Lemieux made history, becoming the first player owner in the modern sports era.
Well, obviously we're here today to announce my attempt to come back to the National Hockey League.
Went out to dinner that night and he came back to my house. He said, I want to talk to you about something else. And I said, sure, what is it? He said, I think I'm going to play. And I said, play what? He goes, I'm going to play hockey. well, I thought he was getting ready for the alumni game or, an old timers game. And I said, good, you should go out and get some exercise. It'll be good for you. And he said, I'm going to play for the Penguins. He goes, I really think I know what to do. I know how to train. I want my son to see me play.
He's certainly been a big part of my life since the day he was born. He's a young kid that gets up early in the morning with his hockey stick in his hands and loves the game of hockey. And I'm sure he would love to see his dad play before it's too late.
So I called Mario up and I said, what are we going to pay you? And he said, I might not be any good. And I said, well, I think everyone's going to come see you, so you're entitled to a lot. I think it'll fill every place you go in the country will be full. He says, well, we're partners, so I think whatever we do is good for both of us. I think I'll just take league average.
Well, a thundering ovation for number 66, Mario Lemieux.
You don't appreciate something until it's gone, and it's so great to have Mario back.
Yager turns around. Over to Lemieux. Mario Lemieux, his first goal in his comeback here tonight at the Mellon Arena. And he is smiling like a butcher's dog. Mario Lemieux.
That's as good a moment for me as anything, was seeing him come back out on the ice and play again.
After the excitement of Mario's return, the team fell on hard times. Most notably was their struggle to replace the Civic Arena, which at the time was the oldest building in the NHL.
From the time we bought it, we thought we were going to get a new arena. We sat around and we watched new stadiums go up and new baseball fields go up, and we weren't getting a new arena.
There were some ups and downs in the negotiations for the arena. No one in the management team or the ownership group wanted to leave Pittsburgh. But we got very close to having to leave. We had all these places that wanted us to move there. So we went back to Kansas City. They had just built a new arena. All their major corporations were there to say what they would do if we moved the team to Kansas City. They put a deal on the table that was an extraordinary deal for us to move. Next thing you know, we had a call from the governor's office to meet in New Jersey, and we had a deal the next day.
That was a special night, just to say a few words and announce to our fans that the Penguins were going to remain in Pittsburgh forever, and that was an amazing feeling.
Tonight, I'm proud to announce that your Pittsburgh Penguins will remain right here in Pittsburgh, where they belong. Thank you, Pittsburgh. Have a great night.
For Mario, who never, he doesn't really like to go out in the public and talk about it and see how excited he was about staying in Pittsburgh. It was a great night.
With the team's future in Pittsburgh secure, the ownership's sole focus was now winning the Stanley Cup. At the 2008 trade deadline, they took a gamble on Marian Hossa, a free agent they thought would help them in the postseason.
We felt that the team was pretty close. We had some young guys, but we felt that adding Marian Hossa to our team would give us a pretty good chance to do well in the playoffs.
When we went out and got Marian Hossa, if that didn't work, if that didn't get us to the finals, they would have been writing checks for a long time. We didn't really have the revenue to bring those type of players in yet, but we did because they wanted to win.
The finance people and the leadership at the time were telling us, we have a 5-year plan to have a winning team. And that's ridiculous. Every day is an opportunity. If there's an opportunity that comes by for us to materially change our chances of winning, then we should do it. I've said for a long time that I thought we should either win or get caught trying. So that was really the underlying piece of it all.
To give the go-ahead to add more money to the payroll when the team was not doing so well back then was something important. That's always been a key for us, to give everything possible to our GM to put a great team on the ice to be successful and have a chance to win the Cup every year.
That philosophy paid off the following year when the Penguins had a rematch with the Detroit Red Wings in the Stanley Cup Final. On June 12, 2009, the Penguins earned their third Stanley Cup. And for Mario Lemieux, his first as an owner.
Never got through. Loose puck down to the net. Save made. Rebound. Oh, big save by Fleury. And it is. That's it. And Lord Stanley scratched their names on your fabled cup. The Pittsburgh Penguins are Stanley Cup champions 2009.
It's a different feeling as an owner. You get the satisfaction of being a part of building something, and a great group of guys, and so they're both special. But I would have to say, as a player, it's even more.
Winning and hoisting the cup is a different thing. It's kind of even though you may think about it, and even though you may, have some hope that you've got a shot at it, it really happens kind of almost in an instant. So it's a different feeling. There's a euphoria that comes out of just the whole experience of winning it and watching the team, and the rush that comes off of that is pretty fantastic.
A few short years later, Mario Lemieux ceremoniously transferred the success and excitement of the Igloo onto the ice of their new home.
It really meant a lot to me because of all that we have gone through together in the Igloo, and taking that water from the Igloo and passing it on to Consol was a very special night.
I mean, Ron Burkle and Mario Lemieux are the best owners that I could think of having. If I had to like draw up who the perfect owners would be for a sports team in Pittsburgh, it would be them.
We have the best ownership in all the sports, and I can say that feeling very comfortable knowing that these owners give me great guidance. They don't interfere with the team. They're always there if I need advice or need help with something. We have the same goals. We're in to win the Stanley Cup, and they give us all the resources to become champions.
That'll do it for this episode of Pens Pulse presented by S&T Bank. On behalf of Josh Getzoff, Paul Steigerwald, and the entire Pens TV production crew, I'm Selena Pompiani. Thanks for watching.
This is possibly the most exciting moment of my life, and I want to thank you all for your great support.
To the city of Pittsburgh and you fans, this is an unbelievable day for us. We appreciate it so much, and believe me, as ownership, we intend to see to it we do this year after year after year. Thank you very much.
Mario Lemieux.
Finally, after 17 years, the Stanley Cup is back where it belongs, right here in the city of Pittsburgh.